Hello and welcome to the Town of Litchfield Recreation Commission meeting. Tonight is Tuesday, February 8th, 2022. We are meeting at the Town Hall Conference Room and we have our one member attending remotely via WebEx. The time is 7:30 p.m. We'll do a roll call of members present. My name is Steve Gannon. I am the chairman. Mr. Peter Ames, secretary.
Present.
Mr. Member Mike Bosky.
Here.
Member Judy Brennan.
Present.
Member Christopher Burns.
Present.
Selectman's rep Steve Weber.
Present.
We do have one member that will be absent tonight with prior notification. That's Vice Chair Andy Ruggles. Happy birthday, Emmett. We need to take a vote to allow Mr. Jeff Town to attend remotely. Could I have a motion to allow Jeff to attend remotely?
Make that motion.
Could I have a second?
Second.
Because he is attending remotely, we have to do a roll call vote. So Mr. Ames?
Aye.
Mr. Bosky?
Aye.
Ms. Brennan?
Aye.
Mr. Burns?
Aye.
Mr. Weber?
Aye.
And I am also an aye. So that motion carries 7-0-0. We will also appoint Mr. Town as a full voting member this evening due to Andy's absence.
Steve, that's 6.
Huh?
6.
6.
0, 0.
6, yeah. Thank you. Thanks for the simple math.
Got you back.
Yeah.
He never counts himself.
Andy's at home laughing, though, I'm sure. Consideration of previous meeting minutes. We have only one to review. That was the January 25th, 2020. In attendance was myself, Andy, Peter, Judy, Chris, Jeff, and Steve Weber. Mike was absent. Can I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes?
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
Any discussions, edits that need to occur? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. I gotta get Andy out of there. Mr. Ames?
Aye.
Ms. Brennan?
Aye.
Mr. Burns?
Aye.
Mr. Town? He's on.
Aye.
Mr. Weber?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. That carries. Nays and abstains.
Staying.
Thank you. The motion carries 6-0-1. Public input. We do not have anyone else attending remotely, from what I could tell. And we do not have anyone in the audience with us. Facilities and field requests. I thought Adam was going to be here tonight. And this is a follow-up on holding a metal detector club at Talent Hall. We did discuss this at the last meeting. We agreed to follow up with the town administrator for further details on how to approve or proceed with these kind of requests. It is a bit of a gray area because it's not really in our bylaws to allow meetings of this fashion to be held in Talent Hall, but this is really kind of a recreational activity. Which would mean in order for him to have meetings, he'd have to have a certificate of insurance. Is that what pretty much Mr. Brown?
Well, he equated it to almost meeting in the community room because you don't need a certificate of insurance to meet in the community room. So he said the same thing could happen within Talent Hall if it was within our bylaws to do it. The real reason we do certificate of insurance is, let's just say if the grass wasn't cut and a child slipped and fell and broke a leg, that would be our liability. But if someone was playing softball or baseball and someone threw a bat, hit a child, that's not the liability of the town. It's the liability of the league at that point. So the only thing that would be a liability, just like it would be in the community center, if somebody set up a projector and someone tripped over the extension cord and got hurt, that wouldn't be on the town because it wasn't us who set that up. So that's kind of where the liability goes.
So if we wanted to start allowing meetings like this to occur in Talent Hall, we'd have to adjust our bylaws accordingly.
Correct. Because in our bylaws, it says they need to have a certificate of insurance.
Right.
And find time.
Yeah.
That's the tough part.
Now, what typically does a certificate of insurance for such as this situation, what do you think it would cost?
So if I look at baseball and softball, it's $500 to $900.
Okay.
It all depends on the amount of liability that.
Yeah, if you do $1 million, it's about
Right. But I mean, there's a thing like, again, see baseball, softball, any of the sports, usually at that area, because someone can get hurt, medical, like if you're a metal detecting club, what's the amount that someone's going to be hurt for if someone gets hurt? Or, I mean, you can, like, they might go like, we only need $100,000,
Yeah.
and that might
That
be,
would be a fraction of the
yeah,
cost.
exactly. So it all depends. It all depends on the activity, really.
Does
Like,
I thought the town required a certain level. I thought they required it to be $1 million life insurance, or not like insurance policy.
I'm not sure.
I think we require it for like the big events, because when they're big events,
There's
but we
higher
don't
activity.
have, I don't think there's nothing in our bylaws that states it has to be a certain amount, if I'm not mistaken.
Because I know for baseball and softball, we carry $1 million.
Right. I think from what I've seen, most of them do carry about the same, but there's a higher chance of someone being injured because of they're
Correct.
playing a sport and that kind of stuff. Would Troy be able to let us know what that would be? Or is that something they'd have to refer to legal about? What would be their minimum? I guess we'd have to get into categories.
Categories of what you're trying to do and so forth. But as a town right now, to meet within the community center or in this room or anywhere, we don't charge insurance. So it's, do we want to differentiate between a conference room and town hall?
Right. We already have struggles, trying to schedule talent hall as it is.
I mean, and honestly, there's no motion on the floor to discuss this, but like, again, 3 nights a week for your entire year, that was the request,
No,
right?
he was
No,
one
once a
night.
month. Once a month.
Yeah, once a month for one night, but he said he could do pretty flexible.
Oh, okay.
But I think it would probably be better off at the fire station.
I think the community center is a great place for it. I think someone made the comment last time, if you want to show your finds and so forth, they have all the AV equipment there. You can
Right.
project it.
Yeah.
It just comes down to how many people truly are going to be part of the club and show up, because you get capacities.
Yeah, I think that was the issue when we talked about it last time, he said they were expecting up to 50 people. And the community room would be really cozy, I think.
What does that hold
At
maximum?
level.
You
I
know,
don't know. It keeps changing because of COVID protocol and so forth.
but definitely not 50.
I think you could hold 50. I mean, you have all those tables set up.
Before COVID?
Before COVID, I bet you could. I mean, they've got at least 7 rows of tables,
Yeah.
and each row probably has 8.
Yeah,
per
something
row.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's 48 right there, and still have a bunch of room in the back after that.
Standing room only.
Yeah,
So, I don't know, yeah. So,
I
as
mean,
a
I can get
commission-
with the fire chief and the deputy fire chief and say, what
Find
is the
out.
capacity? Non-COVID capacity with table setup, because they configure it all different ways depending on what they're doing.
What's the thought of the commission on turning Talent Hall into a community room?
I mean, honestly, this is again one of those things where it's like, okay, the more we let in there, are we pushing out what we really need town
Primary
hall for?
purpose,
Are we
right.
pushing away are we going to be pushing out the people who actually need it more? Like all of a sudden, like we already have basketball jumping through hoops for the scouts meeting once a month. Now, if we put in another once a month one, it'll affect basketball the most because they're in there the most from October to March. So, I mean, we're going to start pushing them. Like, are we going to start moving away from the true purpose of Talent Hall is for, to satisfy a meeting space? I don't know. When we get to April, then
It's wide open.
Yeah, you go from April to October 1st, or even October 15th. There's plenty of time in there, but in the winter months when it's really needed, now we're saying, okay, we have to start picking and choosing. You know what I mean? I think it just becomes tougher.
I
Now,
think
unless-
it's a gym. It has
Right.
basketball
Mhm.
courts. It has markings for volleyball. Pickleball is in there. And I think the priority has to be sports first, because we're limited on places for teams to play and practice. There are other community meeting spaces in town that can be used for meetings. but you can't send the basketball teams over to fire station to practice. So I feel like because we don't have any other options with the sports, we have to, and it is set up as a basketball gym or court, that should be the priority of that place, because we're already so, I don't know, pressed for getting all our teams the time that they need. And
Right.
I think where you use priority is the right way to look at it, right?
Yeah.
That is our charge and the focus of that space.
right.
I would be open to it being a meeting space if it didn't crowd out or push out kind of our priorities for recreation. But if it's available and we can manage the time, then I think it's all the better
Right.
that it's another way that citizens can, benefit from the building. So,
It's also, I think it's one of those things, if the group that's going to meet maxes out what they could do at the community center, then we possibly could look at let them go into town hall.
Yeah.
If it's past the capacity of any other meeting space in town, and I don't think that's going to happen very often.
I mean, the other possibility, I'm going to float it out there, is do we know when on Wednesdays with the scouts in there, do we know, does basketball practice normally during that time, or do they just say we're only going in on Wednesdays after that, regardless of what week it is?
I think basketball adjusted their time.
Just that, like just the once a month, or
Yeah, their scouts are in there once a month.
right? So they're only adjusting it once a month, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you open it up to 5 groups and once a month, you're talking 5 or 6
Right.
nights.
Well, you mean my thought process was we could say like, okay, so scouts are in there Wednesdays, whatever the time period is. So if there are other groups that want to meet, we say that's the time period that's designated just this night during these other weeks. If you want it, you can use it. If you can't, if that night doesn't work for you, then you have to go looking at other options right now.
Or if the scouts are using it 6 to 7:30, it's wide open after that. You can do
Well,
yours after.
Yeah,
7:30 at night.
but what I'm saying is if basketball goes in there at 7:30 and
Yeah.
uses it for the rest of the night, but if we try to clear out a certain time period consistently per week for the entire year, and then people want to book it for a meeting during that time slot, then it's that time you book it during the time slot for different weeks during, first week, second week, third week. And then we just work around that time for everyone else. But we also have to figure out, like, okay, so you're going to have a meeting in there. If you're an adult group going in there, okay, like, and I don't know what time we gave scouts. That's
That's what I'm trying to look right now.
yeah, I had it up earlier. Let me see.
Jeff, do you know what time the scouts are in there?
6:30 to 8 o'clock on Wednesdays.
I don't know.
No, is anybody
Offhand,
booked
yeah,
after that?
6 to 8, something
Basketball
like
is
that.
booked, and basketball is just booked 5 to 8. So they may, my guess is either they're going in, they're taking that 1 week off every month, or they just go in from 5 to 6:30.
Regardless, it's a scheduling nightmare, and we don't have a scheduling system that can easily accommodate it
Right.
at this point.
You know what I mean? But it's something to consider going, like, maybe after this basketball season to say, okay, how do we look at it? Like, okay, these are the times, figure it out, you know what I mean? And say, okay, so, you know what I mean? Say we get to a point of saying, okay,
Every
if you want to meet in there,
Wednesday,
we're starting at this time. And it, maybe it becomes one of those things where it's like, okay, scouts is tough because it's younger kids.
Right.
But it's also one of those things where it's like, you're starting at 6:30, you kind of half booking an hour, like, you know what I mean? So if you could, and I don't know, it's something for us to think of after this is all done.
Yep.
It's like, do we say, okay, 7 to 9 is a meeting spot. Clubs can use a 7 to 9 slot at Talent for meetings, and that's it. Unless, during off season, if they want to go to 6:30 or 6, that's fine. But peak
during-
season,
It's gonna
this
be
is the way it
1 hour
is.
blocks.
I mean, and say every Wednesday from that time is unavailable to basketball going forward, and say, okay, this is what it is. Like, it's just an option to throw out there. Like,
Does anybody know, are there fewer kids playing this year because of COVID? Are there fewer teams, so there's more available space than they
basketball,
usually is, or is
I
it-
actually think they have
they're
a
about-
decent number this year, because I think last year so many
Oh,
kids
yeah.
couldn't play that
Right.
they want to get out. Like, I know there was a mad scramble they were mad scrambling trying to find places this week with
Right.
Talon closed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get there has to be a demand somewhere. I mean, so they're using it, I think, most of the time.
What would be the advantage of a group using Talent Hall over the community center that's already set up with tables and chairs?
I think one of the
I'm not
biggest
talking
was,
about sports, but-
I think it's just the amount of people.
Right.
Oh,
Like I think our first recommendation to any group would be to use the community center.
Yeah.
Right, but
If
you have a group too,
capacity isn't
If
going
it's
to
not
be
for a
a
sports
problem.
recreational
Yeah.
situation. Yeah, with the scouts, they kind of got pushed out of one area. I'm sure they would have been happy at the fire station, but at the time there was also COVID restrictions and they simply couldn't put it. I don't know how many are in there now, but with the scouts also, the parents typically attend too. So
Yeah.
just round numbers. All right. So going at this point, we will not make any adjustments for this to allow people to use Talent Hall as a meeting room. And after sports are done and we're in our downtime, we could readjust and possibly look for some scheduling software, which is better than what we have. But we don't want to get out
So
of what priority is.
are they looking for a time that's already booked by somebody else in
Yes.
their request?
Yeah, it's already blocked.
Okay,
even with their flexibility, like multiple
Yeah,
nights or
all
whatever,
three nights that they were looking for all have groups in there. So
Yeah, typically in the fall
Okay.
and winter, basketball's in there. You know, and if basketball isn't in there, the soccer, softball, baseball's trying to squeeze into to get some time as well.
so independent of a general policy, I think the answer for this particular group is no, because it's already booked by somebody else.
Yep. Yep.
And we have the general first come, first serve policy.
All right.
So right now, the fire station is capped out at 30 people using tables and chairs. Just because of distancing.
Just because of distancing.
Is there a number without tables and chairs, or is that the same maximum?
well,
Um,
they won't take out. They aren't going to take out the tables and chairs. So
So it's 30 people with tables and chairs and 30 people with chairs only. Is what they
Okay.
have right now on their form.
The other thing that was a problem here is our bylaws also state that, trying to remember exactly what it said. But it was basically the number of people that are not from in town. So once it hit like, I think 50%, then it required it to be, to have a certificate of insurance because it wasn't a local representation. I thought I copied it down, but I obviously did not copy it or paste it.
And normally the max is 42 people with tables, 50 with chairs only for the community center.
All right, so
For this one, we just recommend to use the, go to the community center.
Yeah.
And hope not everybody shows up.
so we should probably put it to a vote so that we can inform Adam of the decision. I think last time I think we actually approved it last time.
No, we didn't.
We
We
did
didn't vote on it.
Yeah.
we're waiting to find out about the insurance.
Yeah.
Insurance
it's
portion
suspended.
of
That's right, yeah. All right, so I will entertain a motion to allow the Metal Detector Club to hold meetings at Talent Hall.
I'll make a motion to allow Metal Detector Club to use Town Hall on either Sundays, Mondays, or Tuesdays from 6 to 8.
Sunday would be 6.
One day a week, one time a month. That's what their request was. So
Can I have a second?
And those,
Those
all right,
times are not open.
okay, thank you.
all in, we're gonna do a roll call vote.
Will they be open after March?
Yes.
Will that be an option after March?
They'll be open up once basketball is done.
Yeah. So probably
Some
the
of them
1st of
anyway.
April.
I'd say, yeah.
So
So
could
this is
we
something
approve
that
it starting in April?
For?
Yeah, they could we could
Say-
revisit this and they could resubmit an
They
application
have
starting in
to go
April.
at different dates. But
Yeah.
Once basketball's over, it's not getting used much, so.
Can we just, could we vote to approve it starting in April?
I'd rather him come back in because
Okay.
come April, in March sometime, we do a reelection of the board. And there's some members that I think their commission is up.
Yep.
So I'd rather we'll readdress come April. And then we'll also have more time to discuss with the lawyer if there is any stipulations on how much insurance we should have, et cetera. We have a lot to figure out.
Then the paperwork will have a correct date too.
Okay.
All right, so we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Ames.
No.
Ms. Brennan.
Nope.
Mr. Bosky.
No,
Mr. Burns.
No.
Mr. Weber.
No.
Mr. Town.
No.
I am also a no. Motion carries 007.
motion doesn't.
Motion fails. It's been a long week.
Fails,
I started a new job 2 weeks ago and it's draining me. All right, so that's all we had for facilities and field requests, right? New business, livable communities, Mrs. Brennan.
This is kind of a revisit, because I had brought it up just as Town Hall was opening again, and we had so much scheduling stuff going on, so kind of left it alone. But Livable Communities is part of AARP, but it doesn't just focus on the elderly. Their definition is availability or activities for all ages and abilities, more like an all-inclusive kind of community. Currently, there are 16 towns in New Hampshire that completed the paperwork and were accepted and considered livable communities in New Hampshire, but it's a nationwide type of program. And what it basically is, it wouldn't be, if we decide to go with this, just the rec commission. I've spoken with Steve, you have to have your highest elected official needs to be listed on the application, and you work in conjunction with the different groups in town with the focus of trying to create more accessible and livable communities for all ages, where a lot of towns and cities, recreation, 80% of it is geared towards your youth. But in the next 5 to 10 years in the United States, you're going to have more people over the age of 60 than you are under the age of 18. And that's just a reality everywhere. And what I sent you a link, and I can resend it because it was so long ago, and I know some of you had time to look at it or not. But basically, before we even make a decision is, I think this needs to be presented to the Board of Selectmen first to see if this is something they stand behind, because it's a community-based program, not just like one group. So I could see conservation and maybe other groups in town, even maybe different parts of high school, some of their groups getting involved to find ways to make our community more accessible to everyone. Doesn't necessarily have to cost lots of money. I know, just for example, like the community garden conservation is starting, is one of things people have proposed for funding for. They offer grants through Livable Communities. It could be building a ramp. You can't buy a vehicle if you try to apply for their grants. You have a better chance of being accepted if you're part of the Livable Communities and been accepted, because you're kind of going to have like 5 or 6 statement piece that says this is our mission and this is our broad-based goal. And so whatever you decide to apply for a grant kind of has to fit that, but it's pretty broad. You can't, no vehicles, so you can't buy a bus to bus people around. But one town used the money as renting an empty building to have like a senior citizen activity center where they ran something with volunteers once or twice a week. It's really kind of broad. It doesn't seem like it's that hard to do. Our mission statement as the rec commission already fits alongside theirs. We already have a few things going in town that are geared toward not just the youth. And I don't want to say don't do any more for the youth. You want it accessible to everyone. And if we chose afterwards to apply for grants, it would have to be something that's going to be used and beneficial to the community, not just a statue or something kind of just sitting there, but something that's going to really help on a daily or weekly something basis to get more people of all ages involved.
So do you see it as a subcommittee, maybe to the rec that's cross-functional? You have people
Or
from
I
conservation, maybe someone from selectmen, somebody from the
So you as the
schools,
highest
somebody
elected
from
official are going
community
to have
garden.
to be involved to a
Okay.
certain extent.
Yep.
And then you have a representative or a contact person who is not that person. I'm willing to be that. I'm willing to talk to other groups in town and explain it into more detail. But I think we have to and get our selectmen on board with this, that this is good for our community and why would it be good. Although AARP says if you're selected as a livable community, it doesn't mean we're promoting your community. But when you have something like that and people look at it when they're moving to town, I mean, anytime we get people moving to town without kids, it actually helps us tax-wise.
Yep.
Because people are paying into the taxes. The bulk of our taxes go to school. And if you're past that age and not putting kids into the schools, you're actually helping the tax base.
You're not utilizing as many resources.
But right. But you still want everybody, well, for the most part, wants to live where, there are things going on. And then it does ask to look at your websites or Facebook pages, that type of stuff. They want to make sure there's been some community involvement and community things going on in that building. But I think we already have quite a few things great going on and moving in that direction. That it wouldn't be that hard for us to get accepted and then better shot at getting some funding, grant money for what they call quick action projects. You have to apply by March something. They tell you in April if you've got it, your project has to be completed by November. So it's very fast moving. They do it every year. Last year's awards ended up being between $12,000 and $13,000 on average.
So it does sound like we will need best thing would be a subcommittee that we could sponsor. You could bring Steve as the highest elected official on board, get a couple people from conservation.
Or even just one.
Just one,
from conservation. I don't mind being the contact person.
I'm going to think you're going to want more than just three of you because it sounds like it'll be a lot of
I think
work.
there should be some, other groups and.
I think there should be some citizens. There could be some
Yes.
people from the school. Try to
I'd
really
like
make
to
it
see-
cross-functional
well,
where
you
people
may
are.
have maybe National Honor Society or a different group in school too and I know that there's groups in the high school who have sponsored like senior lunch day or things like that in the past that maybe not everybody's aware of, but that will help us get that standard of a livable community. And I think when you have a group working together, like I'm hesitant because how many meetings are you at already?
Oh, I know.
But I don't think
This is a good one. I like this. I mean, we
I
can
don't
get somebody
think-
from the veterans group to be part of it.
Yes, I was thinking veterans group too. Because there are so many groups out there. And the application is not that hard. There's maybe, 4 questions you have to answer, 4 or 5. It already meets a lot of our mission statement, probably part of conservation, even part of what the veterans.
And then what did they do? They just going to review everything,
They
kind of
review
assess
everything and
it?
say, congratulations, you've been accepted as a livable community, AARP livable community. You can use that however you want on your town.
And
on
then
your
do you
town
have to
Facebook
every
page.
year reapply or do you have to, I would think
Nope.
you'd have to keep up to a certain standard to keep within the scope of a
No,
livable?
but because you have to have a committee or someone they trust you to make sure you're following through with this and that progress is being made or adjustments are being made. So you don't have to go back to them every year. The only thing they're quick on is if you apply for one of their grants, the quick action grant. So you gotta when you do your proposal for whatever it is you want, you have to make sure you have your numbers and how you're gonna do it and what it's gonna cost and that you can start in April and that it's done by November 1st type of thing. But that's, a second piece. And I think we're better off getting that livable community acceptance first, and then.
Yeah,
have a
since we're gonna
better
miss the
chance.
cycle anyways, being March, it gives us time to plan for next March, what
Right,
type of project would
and,
we want to go do if we chose to do it.
And there could be things that we do too. I don't know where we might be able to use some impact fees along with it. Like I don't know enough or understand enough about the impact fees. I know
No one
about
does.
what we can do with it.
It's a
But
mystery.
that, let's say our project is more than what they allow for a grant. If we had some of those impact fees that fell in line with whatever it is we wanted to do, it could be, a bigger project.
All right, so how do we move forward? Do we just start a
So, I
subcommittee
guess-
and,
I would be looking to you guys to say, yeah, we'll support you. Go ahead and talk
Yeah,
to the
let's-
Board of Selectmen. And
so we'd have
start
to,
there with
how do
them.
you start a subcommittee?
the
Do you have to
program.
vote on it? Do you just
I think we should
Yeah,
do
motion.
motion, yeah.
motion?
But I think we do first, we bring it to the board of, if we all agree that we want to go do it, let's bring it to the board of selectmen, do a little research,
I
do a
think that's where it has to
presentation on
start.
what it is.
Yep.
And if the selectmen are good with it, then I think it comes back to us. and we
Okay,
figure out how do we want to structure it.
yep. And then we could have you solicit the other
Right.
organizations and
Yeah, see if there's
veterans,
interest.
et cetera, and get more
So-
people involved.
Yeah, and I'll put together packets of the application, everything
Yeah.
for everybody to look through. And I can resend links. They redid some of it because it was quite a while ago, quite a few months ago that I sent it to everybody. But
And
applying is not that complicated of a process, and they do trust, they accept you that you've got someone in that group who's going to be making sure that things are happening.
I
I
like
think it
it.
would be good.
I think it's a good idea
Yep.
to investigate.
And
see
then
what
we're
it's
gonna
all
get you a
about.
shirt that says AARP on it and you're gonna wear it.
We already have one.
Getting the propaganda in the mail, so.
So that's,
You get to that age, everything starts coming in.
so the three things you have to plan, implement, and evaluate. Yeah. Through the process of.
So I'll make a motion that we pursue becoming a ARP livable community, working through the selectmen and
Right?
Yeah.
I'll second that.
So did we just say that we were gonna take the selectmen
Yeah,
first
we're
and
gonna go to
then
the first.
vote on it? So,
Yeah, I think Jeff missed that though. We had said that we would actually like go to the selectmen first, make sure they think it's a good idea, then come
And then
back
come
and then
back
vote
and-
on.
Creating a
Let's do that
How to
subcommittee.
do
before we
it.
put any effort into
Because we
it.
can't do anything without
Okay.
the support of the Board of Selectmen.
I don't see the board denying it, but.
No.
Let's start there.
Our next meeting's the 28th.
28th?
No, this is next week, isn't it?
We canceled Valentine's night.
Oh.
Due to,
Oh,
due to prior planning.
Wait, what?
It's Monday,
Oh, okay.
Monday the 28th. And I won't be in attendance that night, Judy.
You will?
I will not be. I'll be on vacation. So I'll be at the one after that, which is, if that's right, was it the 14th of March?
well, no, isn't that election or is that the
No,
week after
election's the 8th. So I'll be there the 14th.
Maybe.
Might be his birthday or something.
So
No.
do you want me to wait till the 14th? I mean, there's no rush.
Well, yeah, I'd like to be there with you to
Okay, so
present it
let's-
to everybody.
Let's do the one in March.
Okay, so it'd be the second Tuesday in March, a Monday in March, which is March 14th.
Okay,
Yeah, gather as much as you can.
I will. I'll do a PowerPoint presentation and have, like I said, printed copies of the application. Everybody can look
Yeah,
at
if we can
it.
get all that to Troy too, so he can start looking at it and be an
Okay.
advocate with us.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. All right, Talent Hall, heat and water situation. We had about 2 weeks ago, I guess it'd be 2 weeks, a week and a half ago, the heating system at Talent Hall failed. We had the vendor come in, they made some adjustments, replaced the panel, said it was working, but then we got notification from, I think you,
Mhm.
saying it was 32 degrees in the building
It was chilly.
and the heat wouldn't kick on. So Troy and I went down, shut off all the water, drained the hot water tank, etc. He called the contractor. They came back in, looked at the system, said that they needed to order some parts, and the parts could be 6 to 8 weeks. But they put a temporary fix in and got the heating system going. The concern was if the heating system cycles, will it come back on? It's been functioning properly. Well, it's been functioning. It's not too hot in there, right?
No, it's actually pleasant.
It's working. So it seems to be cycling like it should. It's not just running constantly.
No, it's getting to 68, shutting off, coming back down.
Were you in there when, did you hear it cycle at all? Did you witness
I
that?
didn't hear it cycle, but I was in there a couple times that day, and every single time it was 68.
68 degrees.
Yeah.
So it's got to be cycling.
It was,
Unfortunately, during that time between, it was the cold snap that we had water problems. So the water meter cracked and started leaking to the point where you couldn't even just run it with the water on and catch a bucket. Penachuk went in today and changed out the water meter, but then we're informed by Mr. Burns out there, he saw some leaks in the kitchen.
Yep.
So there is a chance also that we may have leaks other locations. So before we actually allow people to go back into Talent Hall, we have to go down there and basically look around to see if there's other leaks. We had a quick discussion before the meeting about, what can we do? We've discussed this before, and I think we should proceed with getting rid of the hot water tank on the top floor. So if you look at Talent Hall, when you walk in the front door on the right-hand side is the bathrooms. That's where the water comes in. Then it goes under the stage, upstairs to a hot water tank, and then back down to the kitchen. I don't know why there's a 40-gallon hot water tank on the second floor. The kitchen's not being used. The sink's not being used. So I think we should proceed with getting a plumber in there, cutting the line that goes underneath the stage, eliminating everything to the left, and capping it off, and then start focusing on putting on-demand hot water system on the right-hand side by the bathroom. In the meantime, before we can get that done, we'll have to get in there and try to find any shut-off valves that we could find to shut off that water going to the left-hand side, because you said you did not see a shut-off for the kitchen.
The only shut-offs that I know of are right by the water meter in that box.
Yeah.
There's 3 or 4 of them in there. So I'm assuming that's one of them.
Yeah. It seemed like to be in a loop.
Yeah.
we just got to figure out which feed goes that way.
Right. Yeah, because when you look at it, it seems to go around and it goes underneath. I think the bathrooms, sinks, and all that have the shut-offs, but you did not see
I didn't see
anything.
one in the kitchen.
There wasn't one in the kitchen, just came out of the wall, hit the fluxes, and went up.
Let's see, Tuesday. Trying to think of when. So, I don't know. Does anybody have time to go in there and look at it to try to evaluate more, or should we just keep it closed until we get a?
I would not know what I'm looking for, to be honest.
I can go take a look. Yeah, I can too. I mean, I got some time this week.
So what we did do is on the hot water tank, Troy and I opened up a couple faucets, hoping to drain everything down. So before you turn on water upstairs and all that kind of stuff, did you turn off the? Well, you would have turned off the sinks. The water tank, all I did is I hit the breaker upstairs in the office, and I also pulled the blade switch by the water
I
heater.
believe Andy turned it off because he went in to turn everything on, found some leaks, and then he turned it back off again.
Turned it all back
We had a
off.
text exchange, the 3 of us going. And
Yep.
I think he turned it all back off again.
We turned it all back
Yeah.
off.
And then when you went in, you just turned everything on, Chris, right, to flush the toilets, and you turned it all back off again.
Yep.
And prior to you and I leaving Sunday evening, we did the same exact thing.
Right.
Because that's the main priority, is to get the toilets working. If people are going to wash their hands, they could use cold water. I know they won't like it, but we can't have the facility being used without the toilets working for sanitary reasons. So if you can go in there and try to isolate any leaks as much as possible and just keep the bathrooms functioning, that'd be great. And if not, we'll have to try to get a hold of the plumber to go in and truly isolate things.
Because it'd be nice to get it back open for people.
I have time tomorrow night. I can swing in if anybody else is around.
When, tomorrow night?
I might go take a peek in the morning.
Yeah.
That'd be great. So the meter was changed out today.
Mhm.
So that's good. I asked Troy to, when they replaced the meter, there was a shut off before the meter and a shut off after the meter. There was like 3 shut offs.
Yeah.
So I asked Troy to keep the shut off after the meter off so that they're not supplying the building. So the meter is getting water, but then it should be off after
Mhm.
that.
Okay.
And we should, as I said, I shut off the hot water tank just because if there was no water in there, I didn't want the system trying to heat anything up.
I think no matter what, we just keep that off for the time being.
Yeah. I did speak with Eric Gibbons of Jolt about what I wanted to do. Asked him, he said he'll come in and make recommendations. I mentioned, the hot water, also the bathrooms, those heating systems don't have any thermostats, so they just run. He said, obviously this is kind of leaning back to what we found after COVID is we couldn't shut the building down efficiently. Our utility bills should have dropped drastically, but they did not. Those heating systems are ancient, so if we could replace those with something, he was saying we could do a electric panel with a remote control upstairs so that nobody could turn it up, turn it down. They could hide set it to whatever. It has to be 60, 68 degrees or whatever we decide. And that should happen in both bathrooms. And then maybe we can consider putting a door back up. So in the event of this situation, we could just close the door and keep the bathroom and the water area cooled, warmed.
What's the longevity of Talent Hall? Like,
So that's
like
Well, 2 years ago, we had a warrant article just to ask if we could go investigate, and it was
shut down.
shut down. So,
That's
Indefinite.
indefinite.
and there was no dollar value to it or anything. Just can we go off and investigate? And the town had no interest in doing it.
so it doesn't have to pass any inspections or anything for us
I don't
to.
think so. I mean,
I mean, this
we
is
do-
up there with what Steve said before the meeting. Like,
We do. We did discuss at the last meeting. Yeah, right, and that's
the question.
good money after bad money. And I had this conversation with Troy as well. As we need to know how this building is. Is it functioning? What can we do? So we need an architect to go in to climb underneath the floors to actually give us an idea.
So I did
mentioned-
speak to the veterans, and the individual just did get his who's an architect, just got his license in New Hampshire. So he'll be willing to go look at it for us.
It won't be until it warms up.
A little bit,
Because
yeah.
the concern is what's under that floor.
under the floor,
For
Structurally,
sure.
under the stage.
Under the
It's
stage.
nice.
Okay.
I heard under the stage was cleaned out, but I'm not going under the look.
Yeah, I heard the same thing.
On my mining, get out of the mining helmet and go.
The mining, the metal detector come up, right? Send them under.
Yeah, there you go. Because ultimately, if the building is in good shape and it doesn't need a lot of structural work, we've heard per se that you can't sand the floor anymore. So we know that, but you
Yes,
can't
that's
replace the
been
floor
for years.
because we don't know if the structure will
And
support
impact fees can't be used.
for an existing
I don't
structure.
think for
No,
existing
but Troy had come in and talked about using possible,
opera funds.
yeah, because if we consider that, towns use as emergency meeting space or meeting space going forward, then we could possibly use those funds to do something.
But it starts off where first we have to get an engineer to evaluate
Yeah.
to figure out
See how we look structurally.
what can we do, where can we go.
Could you put a rubber floor down, which would probably be the
Yeah,
least expensive thing to do if we're never going to replace it for a while.
right. If the floor can support it.
It's for you.
Because then the other thing we talked about also is if, say, Talent Hall is sturdy enough or needs minimal work to keep it functioning, can we expand on it to put meeting rooms onto the left? Or we can't go to the right because of septic. But then that also ties to, we talked about paving the parking lot. Well, if Talent Hall needs to be rebuilt and it has to go out towards the parking lot, then we want to hold off. So really it all hinges around the idea of getting someone to climb under there to give us a report card on the structure. All right, old business, mask requirements for Talent Hall. We are seeing the numbers continue to fall. Let's have a discussion on that. Would you like to start? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm in a spot to pull back on the masking policy. I think it's much different than even a month ago, right? So now vaccines are eligible for the younger population, that access to Town Hall, boosters are widely available, the numbers are falling. We can't even open the hall again for a little bit. So, I think that's fine. The schools have stepped back from it. So I think it's, a good time to make that move. We know this thing changes. So if things change, then we can revisit it at a future time. But I think at this point, as trends continue in that direction and everyone has good vaccination options, I think it's a good time to
I think since
step back.
last time we met, the numbers were like 16,000, and today was around 6,000
Yeah.
active, so it's drastically. All right, so should we make a motion to remove the mask requirements for inside town hall?
Make a motion to remove the mask requirement at town hall.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any more discussion? No? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Ames,
Aye.
Ms. Brennan,
Aye.
Mr. Bosky,
Aye.
Mr. Burns,
Aye.
Mr. Weber,
Aye.
Mr. Town.
Abstain.
Abstain, okay. I am an aye. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6-0-1. Motion carries. The other thing is, what do we have that capped at for people inside the building?
130 was it?
30,
Think so.
120?
130.
130. Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Yeah.
There's no more policies or anything in place in town hall, right?
No.
What's full capacity?
I do not know. So I know if you set up tables and chairs like we did for comedy night,
Yeah.
it was like 210
Okay.
with tables and chairs.
I'm personally leaning towards leaving capacity where it is until we figure out what the water situation is. Because even if we reopen it,
Yeah.
who knows where that might end up. So
I would agree.
And I
with
don't
you.
even think we're coming close to exceeding that right now.
no.
Yeah, I remember we put a policy in place. I don't remember what it was, and I thought the original capacity was like 200 or more, but
Yeah. Because I know comedy nights we could go up to 210. I thought the number was with tables and chairs.
all right. So for now, we'll just leave the capacity as it is, but masks are no longer required. Encouraged if you feel you need to, but no longer required. Talent hall access control. Where did we leave this off last week?
So I owe you a proposal for it. I haven't gotten around
Okay.
to it yet. Yeah, hopefully by the next meeting.
And that was going to be the one where it'd be both doors, keypads on both doors. One will have at least a lock. Was it going to be cloud managed or was it going to be? It was
There's two options.
two
Yeah,
options.
there's two options. I'll put it all together. I'll
All right.
spell it all out.
Perfect. That'd be great. And that the only other thing I had on here was his placeholder, and we already discussed it about having an engineer architect take a look at town hall. Is there anything else? We're at other. Anything else anybody would like to discuss?
I put out that. I don't know if can everyone share the folder I sent out.
I didn't even try yet.
I don't even like. I
Sorry.
try. Yeah, I don't know if I shared it the right way. We'll see. If not, I'll send it to everyone's individual and do it that way. After reading the minutes from last week and seeing about the questions on the running series coverage of insurance and when that was up, and then basketball looking for theirs, and we didn't have it. We never got it from them after the meeting, so I got another copy of it. I finally went through all the emails and pulled them all into that folder and dumped them all in there. The running series is good through May 20th, FYI.
Yep.
So, but they're all in that folder now. They're all set up. So it's date that they're effective, the start date they're effective, what league it is, and then just COI. So
They'll typically go 1 year, right?
yeah, so they're all 1 year. So I did the effective date. I could have done the termination date, but I think the effective date, it's just as well.
And if you open up, you see both dates.
Yeah.
When you look at the actual form.
So they're all in there now. That's all the ones we have. That's all the ones I think we need right now.
Most of them were February, but there was basketball was like June or something.
Basketball was June. Soccer is September, September, I think.
September.
And then like baseball, lacrosse, softball are all February 1st.
So the leagues that are in there,
February 25th or so. I don't know. So
do we have any leagues that are utilizing the facilities that do not have
no, they all have them.
We're all covered?
Yep.
Perfect.
And I looked today at the New Hampshire Skills Camp, and the only one registered so far is baseball.
Yep.
Softball has been sent, but just hasn't been posted yet on their site.
All right.
So that's the only one that's saying they have a background check actively being used right now.
And that's one that has to happen every year, right?
Yeah, every year you pay your $25, you send it in a form, and they put you on the list.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Mike. I'll look tonight. Have you ever done that stuff, managed that stuff before where you share it out and you have to?
I have, but the thing is, I didn't. So this time I didn't go through everyone's email address. I just put because it said do the link, and so I just did the rec commission link. But I don't know if that worked. If you got in, then I guess, yeah. So
Were you able to get in, Jeff?
I was able to access it.
okay, so good. So
Get at
that
it.
worked. So it was easy enough.
And then basketball shared theirs with the school today too, when we were all on that one.
Yeah, because we're actually named as a secondary, like way
You
down.
gotta be a
there.
rider on it.
You have to, it's like some of them are listed on the original. Some of them give you the form, like just the 1-page form with your name there is listed as additional. Whereas basketball had theirs had multiple pages and we were listed like on page 3 or something.
Yeah, and a lot of them, it's in the lower left-hand corner, all the other people that you do it with.
Yeah. Pickleballs, I think, is May too. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, there should be one for the scouts. I think that expires in March. I can.
Okay,
I
I'll
can
go
take
find
and
that.
Forward it to you.
Put it in.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. Anything else? All right. I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
We have a second.
Second.
All right. Mr. Ames,
Aye.
Mr. Brennan,
Aye.
Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Mr. Bosky,
Aye.
Mr. Weber,
Aye.
Mr. Town.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 7-0-0. All right. That's it. Good night.